Welcome in to Duval Daily presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan DeLugo. Thanks for tuning in. My good people, we are about 1 week away from getting back on that practice field for Jaguars training camp. We've got the Hall of Fame game only 10 days after that. Football's just around the corner, folks. Today and for much of this week, we will be rounding out our positional previews for training camp. Up right now, we've got the Jaguars offensive line. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. We really appreciate your support. Could not do this without you. We're about to hit that 1,000 subscriber mark on YouTube, which will allow us to monetize, potentially. It's very exciting stuff. You can follow me at Jordan DeLugo on Twitter, Generation Jaguar, at Generation Jag. We've still got the Jags varsity tee in a teal colorway available for pre-order only at genjag.com/shop. Through tomorrow, Tuesday, July 19th. I've got a link in the description below. So, Jaguars offensive line. We can take a look at the pieces they have lost and gained throughout the offseason. They lost starting right guard A.J. Cann, who had started 94 games for the Jaguars. Lost starting left guard Andrew Norwell, who had started 57 games for the Jaguars. And Brandon Linder, their starting center and longtime team captain, one of the best players on the team. He started 88 games in Jacksonville. He retired. They gave Cam Robinson, their starting left tackle, since 2017, a big extension. They also brought in Brandon Scherf through free agency, gave him a big contract, starting right guard. They added Luke Fortner in the draft with the 65th overall pick. They retained Will Richardson, Casey McDermott's still around, Coy Cronk, Jared Hawker, Badara Traore, and Nick Ford kind of round out the rest of the offensive line group. So in 2021, A.J. Cann missed most of the season, as did Brandon Linder. So you had Tyler Shatley filling in at center, Ben Barch filling in at right guard. How did this group overall perform in 2021? I'd say a little bit below average. Certainly some ups and downs. A little too much pressure on Trevor Lawrence as a rookie overall. And probably not the most cohesive group in the running game. I think there's certainly some reasons for that beyond just the talent level. You had George Warhop, who really was a big fan of getting those tackles vertical setting, getting them setting super deep, and I don't think that really played to certainly Jawan Taylor's strengths. Cam Robinson, I think, probably not his best style of setting either, to be completely honest there. I do think when you look at Ben Barch filling in at right guard, he performed admirably for a second-year player who was a guy that the Jaguars brought in, 4th round in 2020. Former offensive tackle. He put on a ton of weight at St. John's College, Division III school. Kind of reshaped his body in college. And, he's famous for the smoothies he was drinking, performed really well at the Senior Bowl. And then got drafted in the 4th round by the Jaguars. They moved him inside to guard. He had to go up against guys like Aaron Donald, Jeffrey Simmons, DeForest Buckner. I think he held his own for the most part last year. And then Tyler Shatley, he's a veteran that's been in Jacksonville since 2013. He's played guard and center. I think he also performed at a high level, filling in for Brandon Linder. But yeah, looking at the tackle play, there was way too much pressure allowed by Jawan Taylor specifically, and Cam Robinson gave up plenty of pressure too. Andrew Norwell, I think, it was probably one of his worst seasons overall when you look at the entirety of his body of work. He was in a contract year. A.J. Cann was in a contract year. Brandon Linder decided to retire. So you've got a very different looking group on the interior for the Jaguars than you did just a year ago entering the season. However, because Cann was injured, because Linder was injured, you did get a good look last year at Tyler Shatley, which you already knew a lot about what Tyler Shatley could do. And you got a good look at at Ben Barch, who I think when you look at projecting forward, moving forward here, there are five spots in the starting lineup, right? And I think 7 players are going to be fighting for those spots. Cam Robinson is going to be the starting left tackle. You're staying the same there. You signed him to a big deal. He's now a top 10 paid offensive tackle in the NFL. A guy that I think is slightly above average. I think the Jaguars overspent on Cam Robinson, but I think if he's your starting left tackle, you're in decent shape there. Could you upgrade that? Yes. I think the Jaguars believe that Cam Robinson will take another step forward, entering his fifth season in the league, or excuse me, not fifth season, his sixth season in the league. And he has taken steps forward every year since 2019. So I think you can feel some confidence in that just based on his own personal growth, not even getting into the scheme or the offensive line coach. Just looking at Cam Robinson individually in a vacuum, you can expect him to take a small step forward. He's done that every year, and he's entering his prime right now. Then you've got some competition next to him. You've got at left guard, I think you'll see Luke Fortner competing with Ben Barch. Ben Barch, we talked about. Luke Fortner is the 3rd-round pick, 65th overall in 2022. He's a guy that I had a 2nd-round grade on. So based on what I saw from him at Kentucky and based on what you've seen from him so far, which isn't a whole lot. Again, we haven't gotten pads on yet. But I think he should have a legitimate shot to beat out either Ben Barch at left guard or Tyler Shatley at center. Of course, if Ben Barch is the one who wins the left guard spot and Tyler Shatley wins the center spot, you could be doing a lot worse. Ben Barch is in his 3rd year in the league now, so I think he's a guy who is ascending. He's put on a lot of good muscle, good weight this offseason. I think they're very high on both of those players. Then you get to right guard Brandon Scherff, and we haven't talked a lot about him yet, but we really need to. Brandon Scherff got voted the 3rd best interior offensive lineman in football based on ESPN's latest survey that polled over 50 coaches, execs, and players. So this is a guy that not only does he have my respect, he has respect across the league. There were voters in that survey that pegged him as the number 1 interior offensive lineman in all of football. This is a weapon. He's not just a consistent pass blocker. He's not just strong in the run game. He can get out in space and destroy defenders. He is an absolute load. He's really athletic, really strong, really smart. He frames up his blocks right. He knows the points he needs to get to on the field. He can make an impact blocking multiple defenders in one play. I mean, this guy is going to be a revelation. Of course, what you have to worry about is the injuries. He's missed about 20% of his career starts, which isn't a huge amount, but over the last couple years, he has failed to complete a full season, which is a little bit scary. But when you have Tyler Shatley, Ben Barch, and then you could potentially slide Luke Fortner in there, I think you could feel worse about the potential replacement for Brandon Scherff if he goes down. But when he's on the field, he's going to be one of the best players that the Jaguars have had in a really long time. Super talented, super hardworking. He's going to be a leader. He's going to make the rest of the guys around him better. And speaking of the rest of the guys, you've still got the right tackle spot where Jawan Taylor is the incumbent, a former 2nd-round pick, who really hasn't developed the way you would like to see him develop. And then Walker Little, who was a 2nd-round pick in 2021. He was coming off a season in which he didn't play for Stanford because of the Pac-12 pretty much botching the whole COVID situation in 2020, saying they weren't going to play, then deciding to play. Screwed over a lot of talented prospects in the Pac-12. And the year before that, he had an ACL where he didn't play. So you haven't really seen Walker Little, or you hadn't seen Walker Little play very much at all for 2 years when he came into Jacksonville. But he got into the starting lineup late in the season, filling in for Cam Robinson, who suffered an injury, and he played really well over those last 2 games, pretty much stonewalled the Patriots pass rush and the Colts pass rush, two of the better defensive lines in football. So you've got Jawan Taylor competing with Walker Little on the right side. I think you could make an argument that on paper, just based on personnel, the Jaguars' offensive line downgraded from Andrew Norwell to whoever will start at left guard, downgraded from Brandon Linder to Tyler Shatley or Luke Fortner, whoever will start there, stagnated at right and left tackle, and obviously had a massive upgrade at right guard, which is where Brandon Scherf will be playing. That's on paper. You could make that argument. I don't agree with it because I think Brandon Scherf is significantly better than anyone you had on this offensive line last season. I think that getting Walker Little, which I believe he will win the starting job. I believe he should win the starting job. Obviously, he's going to have to go earn it. But I think getting him in the starting lineup is a big upgrade. And I really think that you're not losing a whole lot now that you have Luke Fortner on the interior to potentially come in whenever he's ready as well. So, sure, losing Brandon Linder hurts, but Linder, you want to talk about an injured offensive lineman, he's missed a lot more time than Brandon Scherf has in his career, and that's part of the reason Linder retired. So, you're not really losing him when you haven't had him, right? He only played in less than half the games last year. AJ Cann as well. So yeah, you could make the argument that they're not as good on paper. I think they personally are. I think Ben Barch is an ascending player, whereas Andrew Norwell is a descending player. I think AJ Cann was descending. I think Brandon Linder, he decided to retire. Now you've got Tyler Shatley and Luke Fortner potentially competing for center. Sure, that's not as good as what Brandon Linder gave you, but again, you didn't have it from Linder all that often. So I think this offensive line should be better just based on personnel alone because Brandon Scherf is a massive upgrade. I think Cam Robinson takes a step forward. I think Walker Little is an upgrade over Jawan Taylor. And I think you're fine on the interior at left guard and center between Tyler Shatley, Ben Barch, and Luke Fortner. So I think the personnel is better overall. I also think, and this is the key here, the Jaguars believe their offensive scheme and coaching is going to yield better overall results from this group. George Warhop was a little dogmatic, forcing that vertical set stuff into the offense, and I don't think, again, that was a strength of Jawan Taylor or Cam Robinson. I think you'll see more quick setting with new offensive line coach Phil Rauscher, a lot more zone rushing attack, which I think with the athleticism this group has now is going to look really good. Phil Rauscher will get more out of this group than the previous regime did, and he has a little bit more to work with. He is a great teacher, comes over from Minnesota, also worked in Washington with Brandon Linder. So I tend to agree with the Jaguars' assessment of their room that it's going to look a lot better in 2022 than it did in 2021. I love the zone blocking scheme. That's pretty much the meta in the NFL today for the best rushing attacks. Then you're going to have so many little wrinkles on offense that you haven't seen around here that'll give the offense little advantages. Complementary play calling, pre-snap motion, which gives you a good indicator of what the defense is trying to do. That doesn't just help the quarterback, that helps the offensive line as well. You're going to have route concepts that complement each other. You're going to have quick passing game. You're not going to have as much demand on the offensive line in the passing game because you're going to be getting the ball out a lot quicker with better timing. The one thing I would have done a little differently is I would have tried to get a little bit more out of the left tackle spot at $18 million per year. You probably could have brought in Teron Armstead. Certainly you could have addressed it in the draft. Obviously the Jaguars wanted to bring in Trayvon Walker with the first overall pick. I don't think the Jaguars have a bad plan along the offensive line. I think they will be improved again with Phil Rauscher. as the offensive line coach, with Doug Peterson as the play caller, with Cam Robinson probably taking a little incremental step forward, as he has been known to do over the last several years, with Brandon Scherff being a massive upgrade, with Luke Fortner being brought in, Walker Little potentially starting at right tackle. You see a lot of quality pieces here, and I just think they're going to be much better coached than what you had last year from the top down, from head coach all the way down to the position coach. I like what you see here. I would give this group on paper, when you look at, again, the new scheme, the new offensive line coach in Phil Rauscher, and the pieces, the personnel, I would give this group probably a B- right now. I think you could see that easily rise if Cam Robinson does show improvement, if Walker Little is who you think he is, based on what you saw from him in college and what you saw from him down the stretch in 2021. If Luke Fortner is who you think he is, which I had a second round grade on him, so I believe in him strongly, you could see this group be more in the B to B plus range. If you get Brandon Scherff for a full season, I think the sky is the limit for this group, but we'll see how that plays out. You haven't gotten that over the last few years. So the floor, Brandon Scherff goes down. Maybe there's another injury along the offensive line. Walker Little doesn't take a step forward. Cam Robinson doesn't take a step forward. I think you're looking at a floor of maybe a C for this group, which is not what you're looking for, obviously, for Trevor Lawrence, who needs to have a big second year. But I think the Jaguars have done enough from a personnel standpoint, coaching standpoint, and scheme standpoint to get this offensive line moving in a positive direction and helping the offense perform at a better level than you saw in 2021. I don't think this is an elite group by any stretch at this point, but I think they have enough pieces here, enough coaching to get the job done more often than not on a week-to-week basis. So I think this offensive line, while it's not going to blow you away a lot outside of Brandon Scherff, it's going to get the job done more often than not. And I do think if you have Brandon Scherff and Walker Little starting on that right side, I do think you could see a potentially dominant running game off the right side of the ball. That is going to do it, though, Duval. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hit me up on Twitter at Jordan DeLugo. Follow Generation Jaguar at Generation Jag. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. Check genjag.com for all the latest Jaguars news, analysis, and Duval gear.